we interrupt this program to bring you...
This is John Carter from Tiger Media Network, bringing to you an interview with creator of Courage the Cowardly Dog, John R. Dilworth. We were recently able to discuss many different topics, such as his new project, Howl If You Love Me, a recently released version of his short film, Goose in High Heels, and a potential Courage the Cowardly Dog reboot. How are you doing today, John?
Well, I feel wonderful. W-O-W-N. Derful. It's a new word I made up.
Okie dokie. That sounds great.
Okie dokie?
We're gonna. So let's talk about how did you get into animation, even during your youth?
Well, it all started with a pencil, John. Pencil. I think it was a number 2. Beware. You ever see a pencil and you take it up, it's going to be with you till the grave, I'm certain.
Being involved and interested in art during your youth?
Exactly, John.
And what specifically got you into, say, starting on short film projects and even like the first Chicken in Outer Space short and other early shorts of yours?
I think it's just the illusion. Yeah. Illusion of the sparkly stuff that we had been programmed to believe in. All that wonderful flickering on the big screen, and the glamour, and the horror, and the screaming, and the flashing eyes without pupils, and the knives, and the fangs, and the little girls screaming, and the strangling, and monsters with nails out of their heads, and monsters blowing fire, spaceships coming out of nowhere.
And so
that was the beginning.
All of these different factors inspired your animation and a lot of your work. And I find that very interesting because you do have a very like slapstick comedic thing going on with a lot of your work, but still has a mystique and horror about it, which is very exciting, especially with the whole arc and even all the seasons of Courage the Cowardly Dog and the original pilot, which I've watched multiple times.
You have? What do you get out of it? What would compel you to watch something multiple times?
Well, I believe that show is probably the height of quality animation on Cartoon Network.
That's the series. But you mentioned the pilot, which really wasn't a pilot. It was a short film that became the pilot.
Yeah.
The Chicken from Outer Space. You said you watched it multiple times.
Yes, I have. What I liked about the Chicken in Outer Space, and it's something that I had liked when I watched other things in your filmography, is that the Chicken in Outer Space, and this is when I got introduced to your work, it's that the character design in that short is so interesting because of the how even the human characteristics versus like say the animal characters in that short, they have such a dramatic look, and I think that even like the body shapes of the characters have a unique way of expressing what that character is. Like Courage being the small, timid dog, pink dog. I mean, I think that's very well carried in his physical look. Same with the chicken character in that short. I think they both express what kind of emotions those characters are trying to deliver through their physical look. And I thought that was very interesting because it carried over in other work, especially in all of the villain designs and all of a lot of the designs in Goose in High Heels, just like the mother character in that film. It seemed very deliberate, and I wanted to talk about that. Like, do you try to show your character's personality through their physical design?
Well, this is craft, John. This is just boilerplate craft. Often you would want to symbolize a personality by their form. And the evidence for this is over 100 years old. So I haven't been doing anything new, let's say, nothing avant-garde or particularly modern. I'm
Mhm.
just continuing a design language, again, that's over 100 years old. You
And
would
that,
find angular,
mhm.
tall, thin characters, depending on how their posture is, to represent those sentiments, as you know, John, that are at least desirable or suspicious, or have an attitude in which they may be of a kind of profitable mindset, as opposed to the rounder types, which are softer, perhaps. You would think about kinder. Um, and then think about my influences for the cartoon, The Chicken from Outer Space.
Mhm.
The Midwestern image, from where most cartoons historically derive. It wasn't the urban big city slick thing. It was suburbia, the rural
Mhm.
areas. And The Chicken from Outer Space, Dorothea Lange, I believe, is the photographer of the outrageous Dust Bowl era of our country. A lot of farmers, a lot of people lost their livelihood, and much worse. And you see that in the landscape, barren, barely hanging on, right? So the
Yeah.
shapes are just craft, John.
And that's amazing because you mentioned tall, angular characters, and often, um, even in a lot of these works, some of these like more villainous characters, like Cats, was a tall, angular character mirroring the small, rounded courage. And I think that was it's very like people don't think about these things when watching these cartoons. They just get a good laugh and scream out of it. And
Well,
well,
Johnny, I mean, you're asking a lot then from a viewer, because the
yeah,
viewer
I
is
guess that's
really
true.
engaged in the entertainment.
I guess that's true. I
And
mean,
there are no rules.
true.
They're just basic trends. And if it fits, like we could have a villain who's a glutton,
Hmm.
and I have depicted that,
Yeah, like in the Flan episode, it's a we have
for
the
instance.
yeah.
Or
Okay.
the pig one, the pig diner, where
Yeah, I remember
the
that one.
hogs are right.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Or when even Muriel's casted as a villain, which is a rare occasion. Which
rare.
yeah.
But you see, even her rounded shape is love,
Mm.
goodness, purity, naivete,
Okay.
wholesomeness.
Vinegar. That
And
was.
then, of course, the vinegar,
Hmm.
which is used as a disinfectant, a cleanser.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
there was an episode where she like trying to Eustace is sick and they have to put she has to get vinegar for some I think it's like gelatin or something, and that's a running like gag where she's like always adding vinegar to food, and I never knew why that was the case, um, as a child, but it's interesting to look at why certain characters did things, um, because when you look at like when what you mentioned is like the Midwest and conveying the Dust Bowl, like there weren't that many shows that conveyed any like image of the Midwest, and even Nowhere was in Nowhere, Kansas, and that was very relatable as I'm from Kansas, and a lot of people who and it's interesting what kind of people ended up liking the show because I've noticed on social media a lot of Latino and South American people are really interested in Courage the Cowardly Dog even today. We have a lot of people like I see a lot of people on my social media feed just posting a bunch of different um, like pieces of fan art that they've created or tattoos of this show, and I think that shows its legacy.
but
And
what do you think I get?
well, I would assume it's pleasure you would get
No,
excited
no,
for
no, no.
people.
Think about what gets posted to me, sent to me.
Oh.
I've had a handwritten letter from a retired fighter jet pilot
Hmm.
of the Air Force. He wrote me told me how much he liked Courage the Cowardly Dog and my work, and asked me for autograph. He collects autographs of people he enjoys. And he sent me a picture of his jet plane. Then I would get the 7-year-old, 8-year-old that would write me letters about how the show has brought the family together. They all watched it together. So you have this huge spectrum all over the world.
But how does that feel to have like a piece of work, an art that people feel so directly impacted by, and that has impacted different generations of people? Like there are people who've watched your show growing up, and now they're adults and having kids of their own, and the show is still being showed to them, I'm certain.
Of course, I get messages from viewers just explaining that. Kids who were, kids when the show came out are now parents and, slowly introducing the show to their child. So it is a generational thing. Linda Saminsky, one of the original tip of the spear on this thing for Cartoon Network, she said it. She prophesized what it would be, an evergreen show. It would always give.
Yes, most definitely. It's often one of those licenses and those shows that is like that I would say is one of the best out of the library of cartoons that Cartoon Network uses. And do you ever want to be able to achieve something like that again, either on their platform or on anyone else's?
Well, I suppose that if I did, I would.
Mm-hmm. So,
but you did ask me how it feels.
Yeah, how does it feel?
So let me go back and answer that question. Well, I don't think I have a very specific feeling except the joy that I have done something, all of us who contributed to this picture, this art, have done something good for the world. That's it.
That's it. The feeling that you have done something, that you have impacted people's lives.
Yeah, but our show is not the only one. There
Yeah.
are countless of shows, countless. This is the nature of the medium.
But I mean,
I don't want to single out my show over all the other wonderful shows that have equal impact on audiences.
I would agree that there are a lot of shows, especially during that era of animation on Cartoon Network, that did really great for the youth at the time and had great work. But I do think that for me, and the reason why I favoritize this show in particular is because there are a lot of topics that just weren't discussed or it didn't have discourse with a lot of people at the time that were brought up in this show. And they were brought up in like very simplistic ways and still had such a very strong impact. Whether that had been like self-love or knowing how to deal with your fears and things like that, and still having a great story arc in each individual episode and having those gags that would entertain. Was it your intention to make statements with these episodes, or did it just come about with writing them?
It's a part of my psyche. I'm interested in ideas and the human adventure, the motives for actions, and the subsequent inquiry into the psychological.
Okay, and that's interesting. As a student of psychology, I think that there are a lot of okay, so for example, so Goose in High Heels is one of those that has some psychological it seems to have psychological inspiration because there's a moment in the film where the main protagonist or the writer gets confronted with like this character that has like a Japanese oni mask, like a demon, and I wondered what was the inspiration behind that.
I think outrage.
Like he's witnessing his wife dying. I wonder what the what were you feeling when you were trying to get this message across?
Heartbreak.
Have you delved into heartbreak before in your work?
Well, absolutely. Possibly not at the level that was portrayed. Well, possibly no. Life in Transition has
Mm-hmm.
is probably 4 minutes of heartbreak until the end.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because it seems like it's almost like a dream sequence in Goose and High Heels because he ends up with his wife at the end. So would you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. So let's just think about it in terms of an adventure.
Okay.
And the protagonist's psyche breaks off, as he has been throughout the entire movie, breaking
Mhm.
off. And this particular part is one of those experiences that have been repressed, or rather suppressed, because it's much more timely.
Mhm.
And he didn't want to confront it because there are some experiences that cannot be resolved, and only fear dominates. Now, I'm being deliberately obtuse because I do not want to tell you what the picture means.
Okay. Okay. That's completely fair. Um, so I think that's a beautiful sentiment, especially since the character, the protagonist throughout the film, definitely was mirroring the experiences that his son was experiencing as well, with pursuing someone that he's interested in and
Did you
worrying about
see it as a
futures.
son?
Well, that's how I perceived it. That's my perspective. But I'm
Yeah.
not. Was he written to be a son?
Well, I can't tell you no.
Okay. Because
However, the filmmaker has another point of view.
oh well, what is that point of view?
Well, then again, we're getting into a very tricky area.
Okay. Whoever will be listening to this, do pick up um, Goose and High Heels on Vimeo. Links will be in the article, but definitely I watched it twice, so I mean definitely did see that character as a son figure, but I know that you have mentioned in like previous interviews that um, often you open up your animation to interpretation of the fans and people who are watching rather than trying to set concrete meaning to everything.
Yes, yes. That's an artistic evolution,
Yeah,
um, a maturity, in fact, which I had to learn.
because I'm like, there are so many ways you can interpret a lot of these, even the episodes or this particular short film. Um, and let's talk about music choice even. Like there was like a classical piece that was used in Goose and High Heels that was just I remember hearing it before, but was there a particular reason for using classical music in this film? Because there wasn't any dialogue. So I
No,
went,
no, I'm not a fan of dialogue if I could avoid it.
mhm.
I so much enjoy expressions and emotions through the physical gesture. I mean, Charlie Chaplin introduced me to nonverbal communication, and I've not turned away.
And that definitely seems to be the case. I think that you mentioned once that and it was like some interview I was listening to, but it was something along the lines of somebody asked you about music in Courage the Cowardly Dog and how it was so unique. Have you ever tried to get a soundtrack for that released or something along those lines? Because a lot of the music is really unique and it makes up for the lack of dialogue in terms of the expression of sound.
Sure. I mean, the composers, Jody Gray and Andy Ezrin, are, I mean, maestros. And it was my mandate to score the series like big feature films. And
Oh,
Jody Gray and Andy Ezrin were totally into that. And some of the very best experiences of the production was spent with Jody and Andy and the music. Well, the music, the classical music piece was something that Andy Ezrin played on the piano. I think he even wrote it. It's his piece. And Jody Gray, they work as a team. So the alchemy between the two of them produces that specific piece. But we used, I had a lot of eclectic experiments with music in Goose, and I don't know if it's really pronounced enough because there's so much material, visual material, that's kind of constantly demanding of the viewer's mind. I didn't make a film so that you could sit down and 20 minutes of your life just pass away and you're left with whether or not, oh, was it satisfying or not? Right from the beginning, I demand that you start thinking and analyzing and seeing what you're seeing and questioning it. And no sooner do you start doing that, does a new bit of information come in. So, I mean, it was my plan to arrest you. And perhaps this is not a commercial picture. It's not a commercial cartoon. It's demanding. And I think it's rewarding in the end because, John, as you said, there were things moving, going on inside your consciousness. You weren't sure, but it was exciting nonetheless, because in the end, it's satisfying.
absolutely.
And it
Because
is a love story.
because I was watching this in my room, and my cousin was there. She was on her phone, and I was like totally intrigued in the animation that was going on in the work. But she got completely distracted from her texting and was looking up at this interesting thing going on at the screen. It wasn't necessarily because she had no longer interested in her texting, but I think that for some reason she was intrigued in what was going on. And I think that's something that's needs to be talked about when it comes to animation. Like, if the animation isn't interesting, sometimes people aren't willing to like give it their time. And I think with this work, it was, especially in the transitions between the scenes, it was always like very different and
Thank you.
not something that you would expect. There was a moment where like the protagonist's body like drags across the scene, and then he picks up the phone and is talking to the bigwig
That's Chuck
character.
Jones. That's Chuck Jones from Dover Boys, a cartoon he made in the golden age of Hollywood animation. He did one in between where a character had to go from the right side of the screen to the left, and he did it like one drawing. It was like, so I just borrowed it as a an honor. And I had been doing this throughout the film. That sequence where the protagonist's muse enters and she
Her hair.
removes her gown to reveal the very same outfit that Little Red Hot Riding Hood wore to seduce the wolf in the Tex Avery cartoon. Same color, same design. Her hair is the same, just a different person, just different character, really. But I'm borrowing from my gods.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm constantly doing that throughout all my work.
And I was the animation on that character's hair was just amazing. Like, I was completely impressed, and that's like I couldn't even write notes down because I was when I was watching the film, because like I tell myself, you know it's not really good film if you have time to look at your paper and write down notes. So my pencil was down during the whole thing because I was so into it, especially with that character. Like her hair was just it was very well done, I have to say.
Thank you.
Um,
But I'm not trying to animate at levels that I haven't been trained to. When you look at the work of Richard Williams, for instance, who is now with the animation gods, wherever they exist, this is the master of masters. I'm doing just at my level. And the point here is that it's really important that we understand the craft, but we execute it in our own style, our own level. But I think for me, the critical factor is that you understand the craft, and that's physics.
have you ever thought about? Have you ever worked with another another established cartoon creator and wanted to do like maybe like crossover work with some of their work? Because I know there was one like Scooby-Doo meets Courage thing on Cartoon Network for a
Oh,
while.
I
And
never saw that. I never heard about it. I never saw anything. I'm a little afraid. I'm afraid to see
okay,
that because
because
there are
so it's
issues
not something
involved.
you were involved with.
No, I didn't even know it was going on.
That was it was a long time ago, and like nobody can seem to find like any of these. It wasn't like a crossover, but they were like advertisements, and they had like different. If it was during Halloween or something, and
No.
and I'm like, have you ever thought about doing that with another creator?
Well, there wouldn't be any point to it because the why? You have to think about why. What would be the economic necessity to do that? And since it's out of our purview,
Hmm.
it, yeah, I don't know what
Not
to say.
something you see
It's
doing.
a corporate thing.
Yeah.
It's what they want to do, and that's based on their own algorithms and projections and field work and economic agendas. Crossovers, if there's one to be done, I hope that I'm involved so that
Yeah.
at least I could help.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, John, just a moment.
Here we were able to take a quick intercession before resuming our interview.
Oh, okay. Okay, we're back. Are you there?
Okay. Yes, I am here.
Can you
So,
believe that was Cartoon Network said, ha ha, they just phoned me. And we're talking about all this noise.
okay. So, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions about that. So,
Sure, of course you can.
okay. Um, do you have any plans on potentially reviving Courage?
Well, we are developing um, something, a prequel with Cartoon Network, but we don't know where it's going, how it's developing. I mean, it's a proprietary thing. So all I can say is that we're very, very excited. But to put it in perspective, John, I
Yes.
have 4 times been on the altar waiting for the bride, and she never showed up. Okay? That's a
Okay.
long way.
We
Do
just
you
got to.
understand what I'm saying?
Yes, got to keep the
Yes,
inner.
okay.
Got to.
So even when everything looks beautiful and you've done everything perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
there's things beyond your control, and many, many, many great shows never get produced.
So, got to keep the inner fanboy at bay. Hope for the best, but
Well, no, actually, no. It's life goes on.
life goes on.
We are not only what we produce.
And that brings me back to like, for example, the Fog of Courage short. How did that come about?
Yeah, that's another example. Now that's already, so I could talk about that.
Okay.
So that came out of Hong Kong, Turner Asia.
Really?
And there was an executive out there's tremendous fan of Courage. And There was a lot of, it was developed. We wrote the story, storyboarded. We produced the thing. Have you seen it? And
Yes,
CG,
I
in
have seen it.
CG. That was amazing. I was living in Barcelona at the time. So I hired a producer there that I had already worked on with a Disney project.
Hmm.
And so I knew him, and the way we worked was very simpatico. So we did it in Spain with our partners in Singapore, and we made this short. And okay, I'll do courage and CG, not my preferred medium by far. However, if that's what the network wanted, but then the climate changed.
Wasn't the majority of the voice cast from the original show though?
No, both our original voices, the talents for Eustace, had gone on to the big Hollywood, I guess, soundstage in the sky,
Hmm.
and we cast Wallace Shawn as Eustace, who I love. I saw him. I
Yeah.
saw a special screening of The Princess Bride at Lincoln Center, and I was reminded of what a curmudgeon this guy could be. Well, we contacted Wallace Shawn, and he was fine, great. So we put him in the booth, and we had Wallace Shawn as Eustace. But Marty Grabstein and Thea White, they returned to do their voices, and I was very pleased about that. And even I was able to voice the fog. So I love doing vocal work, but minor stuff. I would never do a lead.
Not unfamiliar to playing villains on the show. Your performance of King Ramses, for example, still haunts many children.
Yeah, that was great. And also, I did another one of my brother's designs. My brother designed King Ramses. He also designed the floating head in You're Not Perfect, in Perfect. And I also voiced that floating head.
There's a lot of they're like cuts from Courage that are online that are like internet memes, and that's one of
Oh,
them.
I hope so. What
And
joy. What joy.
and
But
things like
certain fans are doing every other show the same way. I mean,
yeah,
it's something that really disturbs me, actually. Um, this attachment to media and its influence on our lives.
hmm
I have many questions about that.
I think that bringing it back to the idea of character and how these characters in these worlds, work together and say things. I think that it's interesting to look at, you know, what are the things that we've taken away from a lot of these works, and even though we like with Howl If You Love Me, like even if it does or if it doesn't have some big statement, people still get a lot out of these cartoons. And I think that's something that's interesting that fans are able to get so much out of, say, a 20-minute short. Even like thinking about Thea White's performance as Muriel in Courage, like that always reminds me of the sweet old grandma character, which is it's very nice to see because you don't really see elderly couples taking like main roles in cartoons or in television. So it's nice to see these different characters and people and real truth being conveyed in a cartoon that's zany and crazy. And that happens to be the case for a lot of these shorts.
Yeah, this zany, crazy phenomenon is it is the influences on a fire. It's like oxygen and the right kindling and the right tinder and the right wood to burn. And there have been individuals in my life that have been a blessing And William Hohauser, did you say absurd, irreverent, genius? This is William Hohauser.
Genius.
He's provided me with exactly what I need. I mean, I would routinely just call him up to abuse him, and we would fall to the ground laughing. We did a short film together called, it was an experimental one. It was called Bunny Bashing. And we both voiced individually aliens, but there wasn't anything you could understand. We just made up sounds, but had a dialogue. And we went on a 3-day laughing binge. We couldn't stop laughing. And although the film underperformed my expectations, I would never trade that experience for the loss of laughing so hard you can't breathe and you cry. And it's a trigger. If I mention that now, years and years later, to William, we will start crying laughing. Can you believe that? That's worth living.
So people in your life directly inspiring you to do your work, and then you can see that in your work.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The Chicken from Outer Space has photographs of all very, very prominent people in my lives. I mean, live photos. You can see it in that short.
Like
And I've
pictures
done
hanging on
that
the
in
wall.
many of my films. Honored people that mean things to me, mean important feelings, whatever these things are. They appear as cameos in my films.
And I'm certain they do inspire your art and your design and things like that.
Well, Muriel is based in part, the better parts, of a real Muriel who lives in Edinburgh. And she's the aunt of a dear, dear friend of mine. And well, I mean, it was a joy. We would speak every week, and I would phone Scotland, and I would have a conversation with Muriel, and I would just write down the absurd, the wonderful things she would say. I mean, natural, idiomatic phrases, and I would use them in the cartoon show.
That's amazing. And it's these details that are just very revealing because,
Oh, it's normal, totally normal,
yeah.
John. Any creator does that. Anyone. I'm not special.
Yeah, but I would say that that's an exciting thing. Like, okay, so moving forward with your next short, your next film, Howl If You Love Me, what's fueling the ideas for this project?
A return to student. A return to the student. I relearned how to write, the craft of writing. And so I crafted a short story from my studies. And it turned into Howl If You Love Me, which is really quite a simple story. It's a horror comedy romance, but it does have unexpected turns. And its soul is love.
I think it's interesting because I follow your YouTube videos and I see the progress of the
The
project.
process. Process videos.
It's very revealing to see what goes into your process of designing a short and the love and care that you have for your work. Like when the video came out with the reveal of, I think it was the title card with the moon or something.
Yeah.
That was just, it looked really well. It was really well done.
Oh,
So
you mean the background?
yeah, the background that's
Right, Vicky
yeah.
Vo. Yeah, young talent I discovered, and she's up for it. Up for it. Talk about training. This is rigor.
Yeah.
I mean, because I just don't accept anything.
Well, I mean, that was very apparent in one of the recent videos where it was like there was like this very specific color you wanted to get for the female protagonist's hair, and she was having a hard time figuring out how to get it just right. And I'm like, wow, these choices are very meticulous. Like, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, this, as Irv Bauer says, specificity. Let's be specific what we want and have the language skills to ask for it.
Yes, so be able to specifically ask what you want of the people that are working with you on a project.
Exactly. And of yourself. I mean, art is that dialectic between the subject and the object, right? This is what I'm learning.
Hmm. And how are you going to get the most out of the talent that you're working with?
Well,
Like,
I'll tell you the secret. Are you ready for the formula? What I determined to do to produce Courage the Cowardly Dog, this series,
mhm.
was mandate I would accept 70% of others of what I would do myself. And it worked.
Could you explain like the process of that? Like maybe uh, with other people working on the project, did you think that you all um, reached the energy expenditure, for example, like the amount of investment? Did that equate to the amount of success that you had?
Oh, I don't know about that equation. The
As
sec,
in,
I don't know about success. All I'm saying is very clear
hmm
that if it felt within 70% of what I would do myself,
hmm
70%, it was acceptable and we move forward.
Oh, okay.
If I demanded 100% quality as I would do it, we would have maybe a John Kay situation with Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, okay.
Show wouldn't get finished.
But you still had a great product at
Of
the
course,
end.
70% of high quality is still pretty good quality.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm biased here, but I think it was great. I thought it was amazing.
Oh, John,
Is that
you're gonna have to take your eyeballs out and polish them.
was that the nostalgia goggles blinding me? I, I don't
Yeah,
know.
but how do you become nostalgic on what? Well, I
Well,
mean,
nostalgic of my viewing, like I think that's something that's very big for fans. It's like they remember watching a lot of these shorts growing up and just getting a thrill out of them and genuinely having feelings like feelings of fear, but also laughing moments. And those
well,
are
the shorts haven't gone away. They're still on the air. They haven't ever been taken off.
true. And
You could always experience it.
that's something that's interesting. And also the box set. I have the box set in my room.
Do
Like,
you really? That's so super cool. Did
yeah,
you open it or is it in original plastic?
I open it because I want to watch it.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the way. Order another set just to have it clean.
Yes, and have it on display. I'm just saying that show is I would talk to everyone, even in high school, about that show. So
But
it's such
what exactly are you talking about? That's the important issue. What themes are
what
you germinating with others that they could think about? Maybe even you plant the seed in the subconscious and later it germinates. Maybe not. But it's like,
Mhm.
what is the dialogue?
For me in particular, it was
Yes.
just talking about art overall and just talking about character design and how a lot of these characters were just so interesting and weird and it introduced a lot of people to different ideas in their youth. And not even just that though, but it was also like introducing how to be funny but also creepy and weird at the same time.
What I
And
get from fans, Johnny, what I
mhm,
get from fans is a sense that it's okay to be afraid. It's
yeah,
okay not to have the support that you need to go face life.
and it's okay to be imperfect. I think is something, especially in the finale, that got across.
There is no perfect. There is none. It's a human invention, and I'm very, very suspicious of its true invention. What was the motive behind it? There is no perfection. Perfection. You could assign perfection to the Buddhas, and they've all left the world, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's interesting because even throughout this interview, you have mentioned multiple times, you're like, we did our best, and I don't want to toot my own horn here, and because everyone did a great job on their cartoons. Like you mentioned other cartoon creators and how they did great, just as good as you did. But I think it's also sometimes it's okay to actively recognize the impact and that even though it wasn't perfect, because nothing ever is perfect, but it did have its great qualities.
Well, why not recognize good qualities? I have no hesitation with that. I've been doing this 20 years, recognizing its unique qualities.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm probably just gonna rent because if Goose in High Heels is never available on DVD, I'm probably gonna have to just rent it again. So because I'm gonna have to show it to my friends. So that's gonna be a whole thing. But it's great
Well,
because it's not even it's a very fair price to watch that for 24 hours. So
yeah. Well, we have in the works a
mhm.
DVD with a director's commentary of the movie.
Ooh, that's
So in a
exciting.
way, I am deconstructing the original impulses of the scenes and the plot. But I'm a little hesitant of creating that DVD because then it'll wind up online
Oh,
and
and
ruin
I
the whole game.
I definitely agree with that point because there's a lot of like internet piracy streaming stuff
Well,
that
just fans that want to get a kudos being the first one to crack it and upload it. You know,
mhm.
this kind of thing.
But and you would think that if you were a true fan of the work and the creator, that you wouldn't want to
Come
jeopardize
on.
someone's.
You're talking into perfection. You're talking as though the world was perfect, and a perfect world,
Well, I'm not
you
saying that.
know,
I'm not saying
according
it
to
is
John.
perfect. I think that there's definitely a point in saying that there are people out there who will do things like that. Um,
Sure. And those that won't.
those that won't. Um, but will then, if it were to be released on a DVD, would Goose in High Heels still remain on demand for rent?
Well, this is the thing. The Goose and High Heels on Demand does not have this secret director's track
Oh,
commentary.
okay.
I mean, I'm very, very happy to receive questions, curiosities from viewers about Goose and High Heels, and we could discuss them. Absolutely. I do this all the time. I do
Mhm.
this on YouTube with my Howl If You Love Me production process videos. And they're really turning into, not that this is my intention, but
Mhm.
they're turning into like a ad hoc classroom in which I have hundreds of students.
Yeah, those videos do get hundreds of views.
Well, I don't want to talk about views. What I want to talk about are lights,
Uh-huh.
individuals that are getting turned on and learning something, getting something out of it. The videos are not for me. I
Mhm.
just want to leave a footprint of the production process of a short independent film. How artists manage to do it.
Will
One
you
artist. I mean, so many ways. You do your own.
will you do it again
Do
after this
what again?
project? Will you document another film project after
Oh,
this?
baby, I just started this. I don't even know how, I've only have a minute and 15 seconds of animation done of a 6:45.
So
This is
that's
going to be ongoing.
yeah, this is gonna be way out for now.
This is going to be down the road. We're going to age together.
So if fans listening to this on Tiger Media Network want to support the project, where should they go?
Well, go to my YouTube channel, watch the videos, see if it's something you want to get behind, and you can donate via PayPal There's links all over my YouTube channel. You can go to my website, www.stretchfilms.com. There's a donate button. There's other nice things that premiums that you could enjoy. It's just a little. It's not an aggressive push. I mean, it's if people feel the spirit, they'll support it. I know everybody's trying to make it. Everybody's trying to survive. I understand how hard it is. And
I think you mentioned in one of the videos, like, using Goose in high heels as a way to fund the new project.
Well, I haven't really done a release, an announcement. It's really soft right now, and it's just another option, a source of production funds. You know, every view, every pay-per-view, every whatever purchase goes towards paying Vicky Vo and our other talented young staff. You know, they're doing backgrounds, we're doing assisting, we're doing inking, we're doing the scan. I mean, it's whoa. That's why it has to be documented, because you just won't believe the energy. And all because I am not using a machine, primarily, like I did in Goose and High Heels, which was all machine, hand drawn in the machine. I'm on paper. I'm back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, because I missed it, John. I missed that thing I love, and that's Daffy Duck. I've got to do Daffy Duck.
Classical animation.
No constraints. I just want to be spontaneous.
After all of our conversation concerning Goose in high heels and Howl If You Love Me, where you want to go next with your animation career?
Well, John, I am making this short film, and this is what I am engaged in artistically. And then we have this development with Cartoon Network. So these two projects, my independent work, my artwork, and the potential of a commercial work, is all that will occupy me creatively for now and the imagined future.
Thank you very much for this interview, sir. It has been a great opportunity. And
did you call me sir?
Sir? Is that insulting?
Sir Lancelot, Sir Dilly-a-lot.
No, is that Spaceman Dilly moment? Is that what we're getting here?
Spaceman Dilly. Spaceman Dilly.
It has been a great opportunity. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see more from your work.
John Carter, it has been one of the most delightful interviews. Tiger Media, I'm very much impressed. I admire this opportunity to share my thoughts and have this dialogue with you. Thank you. Stay animated.
Thank you, John Dilworth, for this amazing opportunity. If you would like to support the new Howl If You Love Me project, you can go to stretchfilms.com to donate directly. Stay tuned to Tiger Media Network for more exciting content and interesting interviews. This has been John Carter with Tiger Media Network from Fort Hays State University.
Stupid dog!